Hi, I'm Erica from the Alameda String Academy, and this is the third tutorial of 4 on Gossek's Gavotte from Suzuki book number 1. Now there are actually a number of really fun things to work on in the section we're going to be covering today, which is measures 17 through 24. But I want to specifically focus on 2 little tidbits, okay? The first is the concept of these 16th notes that kind of out of nowhere have to kind of noodle around and move quite quickly. And we have 2 of those sections actually in measure 20 and measure 24. And then the other thing we're going to practice is this seesaw motion of going back and forth from the D string up to the A and back, and kind of fitting, actually the challenge is fitting in that seesaw motion with the quick 16th notes that need to come right after that. So first of all, these 16th notes, okay, let's look at measure 20, okay? And I do think that, commonly what happens when we hit a tough spot is oftentimes we'll try to practice something just the way that it's written. And I know in other tutorials, and my students will definitely be the first to agree, that I often say that there's a lot of benefit to taking a technique out of the piece and putting it in something else, like a scale or arpeggio. In this case, we have a set of notes that we want to use, and so playing maybe the scale or an arpeggio doesn't necessarily fit. So we're going to need to find a different way of practicing so that we can get used to these noodly bits, because what we need, we have a finger pattern that we both really haven't had, the 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, open. This movement of going back and forth between the 3 and the 2, and then back up to the 4. We're using some of our kind of naturally more weak fingers, and we're asking them to do something really quite quick and nimble. So we need to find a way to teach them how to do that. So when we play scales, we don't necessarily just have to practice our fingers in our right hand or a particular bowing in our left hand. We can practice a rhythm as well. So I'd like to apply that concept here. And so basically the notes that we have in this pattern, said out of order, are we have A, B, C sharp, D, and E, okay? And one thing that you could actually do is practice those. I would actually make a bunch of flashcards, maybe make 4 of each note, and shuffle them up. Actually, I would take 1 of each note and shuffle them up in as many orders as you can, and write down those orders. So you might have A, B, C, D, E, but you also might have A, B, E, C sharp, D, or you might have A, E, D, C sharp, B, that kind of thing. So you can mix them up and practice all sorts of different combinations of the notes. And there's one way to practice, or as I mentioned before, you can practice different rhythms as well. So one of the rhythms that we can practice, we'll talk about rhythms first, and then we'll rearrange the notes second, is to maybe play long, short, long, short, long, short, okay? So we have this pattern of okay, that's just taken out of the rhythm that's written in the piece, so we can hear each of those notes. And I'm going to apply the long, short, long, short, long, short rhythm on top of it, okay? And the key is not to play the whole thing fast. It's to make the small actions really quick. So I could play the long as I want, but the short needs to be really short. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm not just teaching the short note, the finger that plays the short note, to move quickly. I'm teaching my mind to be ready for the note that follows that quick note immediately after. Because not only do I need to play, for instance, the D, the B, D, not only do I need to play that D really quickly, but I need to be ready to move on to the C sharp ASAP, as soon as possible. We're kind of trying to surprise the long note by playing the quick note as quickly as we can. Okay, now let's reverse that and let's play short, long, short, long, short, long. Okay, and we might play that like 10 times. See if we can do 10 times in a row with no mistakes. And once you've got that, then we can add maybe a different pattern. Or you might save a new pattern for another day of practice if you have a lot to do on that day. So another one that I like to do is long, long, short, short. Okay? Okay? And if I really want to exaggerate it and make those short notes move really quick, I might go and just make them hustle down to the next long note. And then, of course, we can reverse that. And boy, now we're at the point where we're starting to make some really good progress to figure out the timing of each of these fingers and getting our fingers ready, really for anything that comes. The last one, there are probably a million more that you could do, but this is another fun one, is to try to bunch 3 fast notes together and 1 slow note. Okay, and you could put that slow note anywhere. You could play it on the first note and play 3 slow, or you could play 1 fast and the second note slow, and then the last 2 fast, or you could play the third note slow and the rest fast, or you could play all 3 of the first 3 notes slow and then the last note fast. I said that wrong. You could play the first 3 notes fast and the last note slow. So let's see. I'm going to start with what we just said. 3 notes fast, 1 note slow. Boy, that's really quick. Let's reverse it, and I'll play the first note slow and the rest of them fast. Oops, I wasn't ready to go on to the next slow note. All right, and what's funny is that one, I finally felt like that one was a little tricky for me because my fingers were not ready to play 3, 2, 3, 4 that fast. I really need to work on getting my third finger back down, and my fourth finger needs to be ready to follow. So I might just focus on that little combination of notes before I try to play the whole thing again. And I think you'll find that even by going through just a few of these different rhythms in a practice session and working on them, your fingers are going to get much faster so that when you put it back in the piece, they are going to have a much quicker time putting the notes together. You'll notice as I've been working on this, I haven't been worrying about my bowing. The piece asks for 4 notes at a time slurred. And you know what? I figure let's just make one thing complicated. And then we can, once that feels less complicated, then we can make it more complicated by adding in some of the other markings. So let's see how I feel just playing separate bows with our quick notes. And if that feels good, then I might add the bowing back in. Okay, that was pretty good. What if I do it a little faster? Okay, Okay, it's feeling pretty good. I'm listening to my fourth finger. I think I want my fourth finger to land a little bit lower because it's landing a little too high. Okay, that was better. But now I might need to make sure that my second finger is doing the second finger dance really carefully before I move on any further. And I haven't mentioned this before, but that's actually one specific thing we really want to pay attention to as we play these rhythms, as we work on the finger combinations, is are we paying attention to our half steps? And especially in this particular combination in measure 20, the movement of our second finger from C sharp in the first four notes to C natural in the next four notes really are important. So then we'll add our bowing back in, and we might play it a little slower as we add it back in. Okay, and as that gets clearer, and as that gets easier, we repeat it a bunch of times, it feels really consistent, then we can speed it up. And really focus on changing the bow on the new note, on the E, on the fourth finger. Okay, so now we're thinking of just pushing the bow until we have a particular note that we need to aim in a different direction. So we could do the same kind of thinking when we go to play the 16th notes in measure 24, and even in the last few lines of the piece as well. Now the second kind of concept that I wanted to cover in this tutorial was the seesaw motion beginning in 21. And we really want to pay special attention here to the fourth finger E being really in tune so that we're hearing the ring from our E open string, but it's also in tune with the lower E. So we have 3 E's that we want to keep track of here as we play this, okay? So and now we can start to see that we are involving a string crossing through this, and we really want to make sure that we're playing smooth and that our arm is just getting, very easily and smoothly from the A string back to the D, back and forth. Okay, so that is the basics for this section of Gavotte, and I hope that you'll play this particular section through with me and the piano in the next track.